Peace, y'all. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. My name Rockie. I'm about to drop this little lesson titled Afro-Taino and the origins of the terms Latin, Spanish, Hispanic, and Afro-Taino. You know what I'm saying? So I'm going to give you all a quick brief history and origin of these titles, because I know a lot of my peoples, we self-identify and we subscribe to these titles like, you know what I'm saying, Latin and Spanish and Puerto Rican and Hispanic and all that. So I'm going to give y'all a quick little brief summary on the origins of these, right? So we're going to start off with Latins, right? So the term Latins, or whatever, originally started back around like the 1st century BC in central Italy. You know what I'm saying? A place called Latium. You know what I'm saying? Where you had different Europeans staying there, but they wasn't united. You know what I'm saying? You had like the Dacians, the Iberians, and the Celts or whatever. They was all living in central Italy, which is called Latium at the time. And at that time, the Roman Empire was ruling or whatever. They basically was ruling everything. They had took over all of Europe, Egypt, and all that. So they was spreading their culture, the Latin culture. You know what I'm saying? So at the time, like I said, these people were separated. Most of these Europeans were separated, especially in central Italy. So what happened was they, after a while, you know, they subscribed and self-identified with the Roman culture, with that Latin culture. So they decided to come together, you know what I'm saying, and they formed the Latin culture. You know what I'm saying? And they took on the Latin language. Basically, they was basically Romanized Europeans. You know what I'm saying? So that's actually where the origins of Latin came in at. You know what I'm saying? Central Italy, once again, Latium, hence Latin. You know what I'm saying? So you had different European countries which were all basically Romanized. So the term Latin actually became a term for citizen of the Roman states, of any Roman state, any country that the Romans took over. Basically, the Latin became the legal term of citizens that lived in those European states or whatever. You know what I mean? So now we go to we're gonna go to the Spanish language. You know what I'm saying? Basically, after the Roman Empire fell, what happened was all these European countries, what they did was they was all speaking Latin at that time. So when the Roman Empire fell, what they did was they created their own languages that derived from Latin. For example, like Spanish. When you look at the etymology of that word, you get the origin, Spanish, hence Spain, Spanish. You know what I'm saying? So the people that were in Spain basically created the Spanish language. You know what I'm saying? That which again derived from the Latin language. The people which we call Romance languages. You know what I'm saying? Basically. And the Romance languages included Spanish, Portuguese, Italian, French, and Romanian. You know what I'm saying? For example, the people in Italy, they came up with the Italian language. People in Spain came up with the Spanish language. People in France came up with the French language. And they all derived from the Latin language, though. They basically came up with their own dialects. You know what I'm saying? So right there, you got the origins of Latins. Like I said, central Italy, ancient central Italy, Latium. You know what I'm saying? You got the origins of Spanish, which was a Romance language, which derived from Latin and which originated in Spain. And now you got Hispanic, right? So Hispanic was a term basically that was used for the citizens, the nation, and the peoples that basically was ruled and owned by Spain. You know what I'm saying? They became Hispanic. You know what I'm saying? They unified and became Hispanic. Whatever territory they had, that's what they would self-identify with. Okay, now we're gonna get to the Taino. You know what I'm saying? Which was the original people that was on the island of Puerto Rico, the Greater Antilles, you know what I'm saying? Which we call the Virgin Islands now. That was basically the Greater Antilles, which you got the island of Puerto Rico, you got Cuba, you got Hispaniola, which is the land with Dominican Republic and Haiti share, Jamaica, all that right there, the Virgin Islands, you already know. So that's actually where, you know what I'm saying? So this is gonna bring us back all the way up to 1492 now, you know what I'm saying? With Christopher Columbus. This is when they started traveling, you know what I'm saying? So these are basically these islands, what I just mentioned. This is where Columbus came. This is what he took over and discovered, quote unquote, whatever. He never came to North America and modern day United States. He never even set foot here. This where, you know what I'm saying, he started his slave trade over there in our islands or whatever. So to take it back to the islands, on the island of Puerto Rico specifically, you had the classic Tainos. That's what they was called at the time. And our ancestors, we derived from Arawakan and African. You know what I'm saying? Arawakan was basically like the natives of South America. You know what I'm saying? Was basically, their ancestors go back to Africa or whatever. So that's where the Tainos came from or whatever. That's the language we had. Was the Taino language, basically how the Europeans over there broke up the Latin language into today's shit. You know what I'm saying? We broke up the Arawakan and African languages into the Taino. You know what I'm saying? So going back to Christopher Columbus, like, I know a lot of people, you know, we self-identify, most people self-identify the Puerto Rican with being Taino, Spaniard, and African, right? But the whole Spaniard thing didn't really come to after 1492. So before 1492 and before Columbus came and did what he did, you already know, rape, pillage, took over shit, you know what I mean? Before that, we was basically Arawakan African. That was our tradition. And even with the traditions we practice, our spiritual shit and all that, like, and to take it back to the European or whatever, like the whole religious system with the Catholic, the Christian, that whole system or whatever, that came for the European.